Here we have the VU4 by AccuAir suspension. At times it is necessary to service the manifold. The best way to do this is by taking the manifold apart and getting to the internals, where you can find the debris or the corrosion that may be causing the valve not to operate as it should. What you will want to do first is take your pick or flathead screwdriver, something that won't scratch up the manifold, and from the side opposite of the header, under the rubber band, you will pry it up and grab it with your finger. Pop it up backwards and flip it inside out. This is the weather seal that allows the solenoid and connections to stay dry if the manifold is mounted outside the vehicle. From there, you've got your solenoid packs bolted down with 8 nuts on top. The next step is to remove these nuts. So take your 9/16 socket and remove the bolts. When the VU4s are built, the top nuts are torqued down to 11 foot-pounds. Make sure not to over-tighten these when putting them back together. Take note of the plug location before taking off the circuit board. With the 4 cartridge fittings facing the front, the main plug is always going to be on the left side so that the VU4 by AccuAir can be read correctly. Take the board off and flip it upside down. This will allow all of the solenoids and spacers to come off evenly, leaving you with your solenoid pack, circuit board, and all of the retainers in a group. This gives you access to all of the stems, which encase the internal poppets and the copper retainers that hold these stems in place. Use a spanner socket or the supplied spanner wrench in order to remove each stem. These stems also are hand tight and shouldn't be difficult to remove. When reinstalling, tighten these just enough to seat correctly while avoiding any damage to the O-ring or manifold. Remove the stems and set them over into the corresponding coil pack that it was originally installed in. If there happens to be debris in the manifold, it makes it much easier to identify where the debris was and to ensure that each stem goes back into the same port. If you've had this manifold for a while, it is possible that there is some corrosion where the retainers seat. While this might make removal a little harder, I wouldn't suggest using any penetrating oil. There is a risk of getting oil into the ports, which can be harmful to the manifold, as you want to keep it as dry as possible. After all 8 stems and poppets have been removed, you can now see the internals of the manifold. Keep an eye out for small pieces of debris that may be lodged within the ports of the manifold. If you do find some sort of debris, you're going to need to remove it. Use brake cleaner and a microfiber cloth and wipe down the area. After you have wiped down the manifold, use compressed air to blow the area down very well. Wipe it down and make sure all the debris is gone. Reassemble the manifold in reverse order. Take a look at the poppets before reinserting them. On the bottom of the poppet there is a small rubber foot. The indentation is regular, but inspect closely to ensure that there is no damage on the rubber itself. Insert and tighten the poppets by hand. Be careful not to cross-thread any of them into the manifold. Make sure that each of the poppets are transferred over to the same port that they came out of. This will ensure the indentations on the bottom match and result in a proper seal. Over-tightening can result in damaging the O-ring and opening the possibility for a leak. Double check that all 8 stems are tight before moving on. Next, you will want to flip over the circuit board and coil packs. Set them on the stems, making sure the connector is facing the correct side. At the base of the solenoid pack, there is a spacer that is the exact same shape. When putting them back together, make sure that they are all matching and facing the correct directions. If these do not seat properly, it will seriously affect the functionality of the manifold. After getting the coil pack and circuit board reinstalled, hand tighten the nuts on the exposed stems. Make sure not to over-torque these as you may damage the circuit board. Now it is time to reapply the rubber seal. Taking note of the initial installation orientation, place the band inside out under the header plug. Get it right under the plug, pull it over, and flip it back inside out right over the top. Make sure the band sits flush around the entire manifold. This concludes the servicing of your AccuAir VU4 manifold.